Hello and welcome to this chess video with me. I'm Fieldmaster Nxd4 from Iceland, and we're going to look at a game from the Aeroflot Open in Moscow. A big open tournament, very strong tournament, but it didn't go exactly according to plan in the first round. There was a very unusual situation. The players start their games and, well, pretty early into the opening moves, the whole round had to be abandoned and the tournament hall had to be evacuated because of a bomb threat. So that's a very serious matter. I'm not sure if the bomb threat was on the venue or close to the venue, but unfortunately these things have to be taken seriously. And yeah, the players had to I think come the next day and play the same opponent with the same color. They had already started the first round, and the player with black in this game, he posted on Facebook that this was a little bit too much Russian doll for him to play the same opponent with the same color. Of course, he's referring to a TV show called Russian Doll, one that I'm currently watching, and it looks quite promising. But okay, in this game, Wei Yi had the white pieces, and Alexandr Fier, who's Brazilian, he had the black pieces. Alexandr Fier is a very cool player. He plays great attacking chess at times, and you can find some very exciting games by him. I have one game by him on my channel from the Olympiad. We'll link to that upstairs. And yeah, Wei Yi shouldn't need any particular introduction. He's one of the biggest chess prodigies of recent years. He's from China, and okay, he's still only 19. But his rating, followed a similar trajectory in a way that Magnus Carlsen did. But perhaps in recent years he hasn't taken any big jumps, but he's still rated well over 2700, but still needs sort of the next step to enter the absolute elite. Maybe that will come, but maybe, who knows, only time will tell. But Wei Yi had white, he opened with e4, and we have c5. An opening that Wei Yi likes, and his his immortal game so far was a Sicilian slaughter, so seems to suit his style very well. He's a good attacking player and has excellent calculation. So we have this line, and yeah, black can play d6, knight c6. In this game he played knight c6, and Wei Yi took on c6. This, of course, especially after b takes c6, which is the most common move, allows white to play e5, grab some space, and there is a hole here on d6 that could be exploited in some lines. Knight to d5 and knight to e4. Now black plays queen c7, and this is a little bit of a curious maneuver because, okay, he moves the queen, attacking the pawn, and now after white defends it, he moves the queen again. But black is arguing that in moving the f-pawn you have, well, weakened this diagonal, and you might jump in with the knight at some stage on e3. You weaken this square as well. But white plays c4, kicking the knight, and now bishop to b4 check. And the next move might look surprising. It's not often that you see a Bong Cloud-esque move so early in the game, but Wei Yi played king to e2. There's actually a very cool trap in the Alekhine, where black plays bishop b4 check in a similar situation with a knight on d5, and king e2 actually wins a piece for white. That's one of my pattern recognition videos. You can check it out if you want to learn a cool trick, a trick that Kasparov missed in a simul, so do check that one out as well. But okay, after king e2, black doesn't really have any immediate way to like attack the king. You have to move the knight now. You could play bishop a6 maybe, but I will probably just defend the pawn, maybe play b3. Although there are some tactical opportunities with knight c3 that I would have to be careful of. But Fier played the most common move here, f5. And this has been played in a surprising number of games. Over 400. Here, Wei Yi took on f6. Knight to f2 is the most common move here, with over 200 games, but e takes f6 was the move played by Wei Yi. Now Fier retreated his knight. Knight takes f6. Yeah, we can note that taking on d5 is not advisable. Black can regain the piece, and now all of a sudden we've opened the diagonal towards our king. So it's not a good idea to put the king in the center of the board and then open up the position. So it's sufficiently close that the king is actually quite okay on e2. So okay, on with the game. Knight takes f6, bishop e3 now by Wei Yi, hitting the queen, which retreats all the way back to d8, and now knight to d6. The queen had to go to d8 if it had gone to c7. I suspect that, similar to the trap that we looked at in the pattern recognition video, I suspect we can play c5 here. And this guy is in trouble. We're threatening just a3, b4. And you'd have to move the queen again, so probably not advisable. So queen to d8, played in the game, knight d6, and white gets the bishop pair. Black took on d6, queen takes d6. So a nice bishop pair for white and a nice base advantage. And we can see that in some cases the bishop could move here, although not immediately because of knight e4, but the black squares seem a bit vulnerable for black. Bishop to b7. White plays rook d1, getting the queen's rook into the game. Rook to c8. And now white gets the other rook into the game. Of course, we already moved the king, so we can't castle. So Wei Yi is seeking other ways to get the rook into the game. c5 now, and we already mentioned why putting bishop on c5 is tricky because of knight to e4 with a fork here, so taking the pawn is not advisable, and g4 was played by Wei Yi. Rook c6 by Alexandr Fier, kicking the queen away, and that will enable black to castle now after the queen moves. That's what he did, and we do have equal material. White does have some space that he can possibly nurture, and of course the bishop pair. The king in the center doesn't seem like a problem. There's no way for black to really take advantage of it, so white seems to have things under control. After g5, the knight goes to h5. Knights on the rim tend to be dim, and it might turn out that it is in this game. At the moment it is attacking this pawn, but it is firmly defended for now. Bishop to h3, trying to activate this bishop. The king was in the way here, the pawn as well, so Wei Yi seeks to activate the bishop here. And now a move that surprisingly is the computer's first choice, but it gives up a pawn. And perhaps it shows that black is struggling a bit here positionally. I looked at queen c7, but it still looks good for white. I mean, it's just positionally good, he's not winning material. But d6 was played. The computer agrees with this move, but it does give up a pawn. Queen takes e6 and king h8. It does introduce some tactical elements for black though. In some cases we can play bishop c8, and the pawn moving to d5 with the queen being a target can also be an idea. Rook g to f1. f4 was under attack since the queen moved to e6. Rook to b6, attacking the b2 pawn. White moves it, and now rook a6, attacking the a2 pawn. Now we're on move 25, and believe it or not, we had in the database 4 games that have reached this position. Now those games are not really high level games. The highest rated game, white was 2400 and black was 2440. So I sincerely doubt that Wei Yi had this all under control or prepared, but it's not out of the question that he had this position or close to it in his preparations. But only, I guess only he knows. But rook d2 was a novelty. The other games had seen queen to d7 and queen to g4. But rook d2 looks very logical. You just defend this pawn on a2. But you have to know what to do after d5. Black, of course, protected the rook on a6, and now he's hitting the queen. And it seems that the only viable move is to play queen to d7. And if you do that, well, black has the option of keeping queens on with queen b8 or taking on d7 when d4 probably equalizes. Bishop has to move and the pawn drops. So probably this is equal. Black equalizes the material, even though white still has the bishop here. So if this was prepared, was all this prepared just for equality? Apparently not, because Wei Yi played queen to e5. But this raises a question: what do you do after rook to e8, which is exactly what Alexandr Fier did? And if you move the queen now, let's say queen to f5, d4. Hello. This guy's in trouble. He's going to drop. So what's the idea here? The idea is a queen sacrifice. Wei Yi took on d5 with a pawn. She takes d5 and gives up the queen for only a rook. Pretty amazing. We do have two pawns as well, but queen for a rook and two pawns, that's very rare. Okay, these pawns are quite strong, and we do have the bishop here and the position is opening up. Other things that play in white's favor are the bishop. Okay, it's pressing d5, but a bit restricted, and especially this knight on h5. It doesn't have a square. This square is taken, this square is under control, and this square definitely is taken. And yeah, the rook, it's on a6. It doesn't have a lot of prospects along the 6th rank because of the white pawns. So black's pieces aren't very good. In the game, Fier played bishop takes d5, which looks like it's giving back material after bishop to g2. But here, maybe Fier didn't play the best move. The computer suggestion is rook takes a2, which looks, yeah, quite logical. If you take on a2, I will take on g2, and my pieces are coming to life here. Attacking this, and maybe the king starts to feel the heat now. Black is still off material, so maybe this is not what white wants. After rook takes a2, bishop takes d5 is very interesting, keeping the sacrifice alive. And now if rook takes d2, bishop takes d2. We can't really take here because of rook check. We can interpose, but yeah, let's have a quick look. There's check. But with a bad knight here and bishop to e3 coming up, these guys dropping like flies, with the king coming in as well. The endgame looks very, very promising for white. So actually knight f6 is the computer suggestion here, and it looks like a draw after g takes f6, queen takes d5, f7. We're threatening to queen, but black has a perpetual here. He's going to check on basically on the light squares here, and we can't escape it. For instance, king to d1. Let's try to interpose the bishop and run this direction, but we keep checking on the light squares. Queen f5, we have to protect the rook, so we can't get away, etc. Back to g1, queen e4, and queen g4, etc. But if white wants to go for more, bishop c4 is super interesting. And I was looking at the line. Let's say, okay, you move the knight, knight d7, and push e6, knight e5, even rook f7. The idea is e7 and rook f8, and I take, and I think this is just an amazing position. I take white here. First of all, the queen can't move from the back rank. It has to protect the square. If you try to make luft, I will play g6. And you can never take this pawn, because once the queen takes the pawn, unless it's with check, I will queen my pawn. So moving the h pawn doesn't help. Moving the g pawn allows mate. Well, queen d4 and it's going to be mate. So black is kind of stuck, so the only question is if white can improve the position. And the way to improve would be to get the bishop to this diagonal, if we can get a legal diagonal to this diagonal, and queen the pawn, and white wins. Now this is definitely a position that would be really fun to analyze for a long time and try to find the win. But white can certainly not lose this, and this would be super fun to play in a classical game. But I do not have a final word, but this looks really interesting. Okay, back to the game. Fier didn't take on a2. He played c4, which the computer really dislikes. And because we get a similar position to what we looked at after bishop takes d5, c3, Wei Yi played bishop to b7, and now took the rook. So compared to the line where we took on a2, white just has an extra pawn. So this is just seems like a bad line for black. Bishop comes back to c4. The queen square was of course firmly under control, so this pawn doesn't really matter. And yeah, sensing that he needed some space for his pieces. I mean, this guy is dead, the king is dead. Fier played g6, but after e6 he resigned. The bishop landing on this diagonal is simply deadly, and there's basically nothing you can do here. I can't really suggest a move like knight here, maybe just bishop here. The rook is coming to f7. What can black really do? You almost can't move a piece, and yeah, this just seems like completely game over. So yeah, pretty nice game by Wei Yi. Spectacular queen sacrifice, positional queen sacrifice. It would have been fun to see what would have happened if Fier had taken on a2, and we would have had this line here, maybe this line here with the pawn on f7, which would have been super interesting. And yeah, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But always nice to see games where we have these like sacrifices that, you know, there's not like an immediate calculation and you win. It's just a positional sacrifice, and this one was really impressive, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. I will see you in the next chess video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.